that unit to? Where would that unit sit if they were like in Germany, or they were in the middle of a field?
They would go into the middle of the field. They would have their own power generator for it.
Right.
There's a big connection device. There was a mobile generator that went with this unit per se. So it was self-contained. They would pull up somewhere where they could be in to pick up any aircraft, and they would set this thing up anywhere in a field. It didn't have to be on a military establishment. They're very mobile, and that's the whole point with them. They were mobile, you know.
And of course, the enemy would be looking for it, hot and heavy.
Yes, because they would home in on signals, and then they could pick it up and move it. So in those days, today it will be picked off in a second, but in those days, as long as you kept moving around, not stationary too long, you were okay.
Yeah, so, I believe everything that was in that is in that unit probably could fit into a watch today. It's kind of funny, when you think about it.
Oh, yes. The average cell phone has probably got more power than what that does, as far as intelligence. So.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I remember when as a kid they were talking about in Washington and where in the military complex, they had like entire blocks of buildings holding computer equipment just to accommodate what you would accommodate these days in a laptop somewhere, like it.
Exactly.
Pretty amazing. Okay, well, Sid, you know what? We'll get back on that unit when it starts to get restored. Maybe we'll look into the posting the process a little bit to let people know. I think the most important thing I think that we can do for the purpose of the video work that we're doing now is just to let people know the volume of stuff that's being taken care of at that military museum and the relevance of that. What's come to me anyway, I always seen that building going by years ago. I've been in and out a couple of times over the years, but I never understood the relevance of that museum as it relates to Canada-wide. I always thought it was like a nice little military museum for Georgina, but it isn't. It's a larger, like it hosts material and information and relics, treasures from all across Canada. So it's a larger. I just can't even I can't even get my head around the scope of stuff that military museum encompasses and the importance of that. And the fact that as a museum in Georgina, we're taking responsibility for that role, Yes,
we are unique. As I've said before, the only museum similar to us is in Brentford.
Oh yeah,
going Hamilton Way.
Right.
But we're particularly unique because as I've said before, we're very, very proud to have a lot of local history in this museum, and we keep those people's stories and memories alive, and that's what we do. We tell the story as well as show the artifacts.
Yeah.
So it's something we are all very proud of. So.
Yeah, and so you should be. There's another really relevant point, at least it relates to the museum and keeping it alive, is that all of the work that gets done there is done volunteer, both administratively and physically with all of the work that gets done there. It's all volunteer.
Exactly. Say any funding come into this operation, either by support from the town, which the town is very, very good with us, and any donations coming in and such like. It all goes back into the museum to exist and to improve.
Right.
Say that none of us take anything out of this personally. And the one thing that is upsetting, and I'm going to pursue it with government levels, is the fact that we have been in business close to 20 years overall. And we don't qualify for grants. And the reason we don't qualify for grants from levels of government, provincial, federal, is the fact that we do not have a full-time employee on staff, which is something that we will continue to do, and something we are proud of.
Wow, that's kind of funny. The fact that you're so frugal means that they won't give you any grants for anything you do.
Exactly. You know,
Yes.
we've got record behind us that we're here. You know, and we've stayed here and we've improved.
Yeah, of course. It's amazing what's gotten done there, and the level of accomplishment based on that structure of administration. And the funny thing is, if they don't have to pay you, they don't trust you. Eh?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what it boils down to. Yeah.
Well, I know I'm kind of kidding about that, but I mean that administratively. Unless they can get their head around controlling something, then they can't. They don't trust.
Yes, exactly.
You would think that track record would lend itself to being for them just to give you whatever you need.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
work with us in some way, you know. But say Georgina does. Georgina works with us, and they're a great help to us. But that's the only level of government that does. Even York Region doesn't step up to us.
That's kind of well, it's a bit of an odd thing for sure. The way that it's structured is for sure, but I'm sure you'll sort that out in the coming. Something has to be sorted out in such a way that it will find a final place to set and a final set of administration policies that say, okay, this will carry on forever.
That's what we're looking for, is a permanent home is what we're looking for. So.
Well, I'm sure that'll come to fruition sooner or later. It has to. It's been 20 years, and the work that's got done there, and that everybody's dedicated their time and their hearts, really.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Sid, so there's one other thing I wanted to broach on today, and then, you know, I think the best thing we can do for these video clips is keep them concise, and so there's one subject I wanted to cover, and the reason that this story means a lot to me in terms of when I heard it is the number of lives that get affected by past wars, current conflicts. We had a number of Canadians go to Afghanistan, for example, in recent years. So we have a number of people that have come back either wounded or affected in some way, and having the courage to just come back and get on with their lives. And what brought that to my mind specifically, you talked about your dad's story when he came back from war and what had happened to him when you were growing up and the effect that had on you and the way that sticks with you today. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. My dad was in the British Army, Royal Artillery, Field Artillery, 25-pounders. He landed D-Day +2. He went all through the European campaign. I recently found out approximately where he was wounded. It's been quite an effort. And strangely enough, he was wounded. The battalion he was with was supporting the final push of the Canadian troops in Northern Holland.
Huh.
So they was in support of the Canadian troops.
Nice.
And they had a new officer, and the new officer told him to go get some water to farm. And he mentioned that the Germans hold that, and the new officer said, nope, that's ours. So Dad and two other guys took off with a load of water containers to the farm to get water. Anyway, they were ambushed. Dad was machine gunned across the legs and rifle shots in both arms. And he was prisoner of war in a barn, which was a field hospital, for one night. German doctor cut off his left arm, which was finished. The Americans found him in the morning, and he was shipped back to the UK. Anyway, cutting this short, he got gangrene in his right leg, so they had to remove the right leg. So he lost his left arm, right leg. Right arm, the bone was shattered. The left leg, he had a thigh flesh wound. He was taken to a hospital. The second hospital was in Leeds, in the north of England, and he almost died. The saving grace for a lot of soldiers was the medical people, and one nurse was in particular that fought with my dad to save his life. And my mum did tell me her name, and I'd forgotten it. And my dad owes his life to her. But Dad was a man that never held grudges. He never held grudges against anyone from German. I had German friends when I was a young teenager. And he said, "Oh, bring them home, bring them home." He had no grudges. He worked as soon as he was discharged from the army, which was in '46. He was discharged from hospital. And he worked right up until he died. He died at the age of 54. He worked right up until that time. He was never out of work.
What did he do? What did he do?
The first job he did drove him crazy. He worked for an insurer. He worked in a big insurance building in the center of London. And he was an elevator operator in one of the old elevators. And they were putting wounded veterans into jobs like that. And Dad ran this thing for maybe a couple of years. And it drove him crazy because he was a bricklayer before the war. So it drove him crazy. Anyways, he worked in factories after that. He ended his working career as the caretaker of a private boys' school quite close to where he lived. And he loved that job. A lot of it open air and everything else, and because he was an open air man. But I never ever heard him complain about his wounds or complain about what happened to him. I've seen him come home in the summer when I was a kid. He'd take his artificial leg off, and his stump below the knee would be red raw, and he would put rubbing alcohol on it to disinfect it, and then loads of baby talcum powder. He had a big stump sock, and he'd put it all on, pull it on, and then he'd get walking again.
Wow.
He never complained.
And I think you mentioned he loved his garden.
Oh, he had the best garden in the street. He grafted roses.
Yeah.
Now, it fascinated me how the hell he could graft a rose with one arm. But he did. And you do this by cutting the bark in an H shape. You peel off the bark with a bud of another rose, and you lay it underneath, and you bind it up with stuff. And he did all this one hand. After he died, I went home, and the one rose there, they have standard roses in England, which are on a long stem, probably 4 foot high.
Right.
And he had 4 different colors on it that he put on it himself. The guy, he did all his own decorating, everything, and nothing did he not do. And anything that he needed a hand with for something, I was there, or Mum,
So
and, I always remember a funny thing. They were wallpapering, and Mum got up to put a sheet of wallpaper up and hold it for him while he ran it down, and she stepped off the chair and right into a bucket of wallpaper pasting. I was there. We all killed ourselves laughing. But anyway.
There you go. Well, you know what? So that's a guy who went off to war to defend his country. He took his wounds wherever, went home, and he lived the rest of his life as normal as he could live.
And he openly spoke about everything. I was fortunate as a kid because, understandably, a lot of people come back and they saw and did things that they want to forget. And even as a 7-year-old boy, my dad would tell me stories. And as I got older, he would go a bit deeper. But he didn't hold anything back. And I consider myself very fortunate because I can repeat those stories when I go out to talk to people. What it was like, how he experienced things, what he felt. He even told me what it felt like to get machine guns, and I can relive. I can relive his life in a lot of ways, And I'm so grateful that he shared all those things with me. I really am.
Yeah, and you're fortunate because a lot of the guys that came back couldn't do it. Like they just couldn't revisit it, and
no.
So. Well, you know what, Sid? Listen, thanks so much for sharing that because it touched me when I heard you start. I could see it in your eyes when you were talking about it, the pride you had for your dad, and I appreciate you sharing the story.
He's my hero.
Yeah,
he's my hero, and I've modeled myself after him all my life. As a kid, I was told no, can't, doesn't exist.
Yeah, my dad used
know?
to say that. My dad used to say that. No, if you ask him, "Can I do that?" He'd say, "Well, I don't know. Can you?" Like it was like, yeah, no is not an option.
Yeah,
Tell me,
and
tell me. Yeah, I don't know why I got that same thing from my dad. Like, no isn't an option. Don't tell me no. Tell me you can't unless, and then let's find some way. But don't just say no. There's no. Well,
So
listen.
I always say to my grandchildren, you don't know how to do it. So let's find a way how to do it.
Right, and it doesn't stop with the can you or can't you. You just got to sort it out. So thanks for that, Sid. Listen, is there anything else in particular, upcoming dates? Anything that you need that you wanted to mention at this time? Anything the museum needs?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, it sure is.
We need volunteers. We always need volunteers, and
right.
and you've seen us around here. Everyone has a talent for something, and we always use people's talent within the museum. Be it want to work, do you want to staff the museum when we're open? There's all kinds of things. Research, volunteers we need. We're always looking for donations, be them hardware, and like everything in this museum is donated. We've only purchased 2 or 3 items since I've been here, and that amounts to nothing.
We're gonna have to do a video catalog that can be viewed online to give people an idea of the volume of what's there and how worthwhile it is to make a trip.
Yes, and to say anyone's got any artifacts, it's a shame because Uncle Bill or Granddad Dave dies and people don't know what to do with stuff and it gets thrown away.
Yeah.
And we often get phone calls. Look, someone's left this stuff here. They were cleaning out. Would you like it? Oh, and it's a gold mine.
Yeah.
To us, it's a gold mine,
Yeah, no kidding. Well, listen, Sid, thanks for doing this today, and we'll sit down and we'll make some plans because I think the best we'll do is plan segments in advance so we know exactly what we're going to sort out so we can do a good presentation. Because the museum, like I'm so impressed with the volume of stuff that you have there and the scope of work and the history of all of it. So I'm looking forward to doing some more of these, eh?
Yes, we're getting lots of inquiries online. Are you open? Can we come visit? And I would just like to say, as soon as we are able to open, we will open. And if you want to ask me to guess, I would say maybe mid-July. The way everything else is going. So.
Okay, well, I'll get a hold of you soon, and we'll sit down and sort out a schedule. We'll actually do maybe a video thing on a schedule on what's up and coming, eh?
Sure. Sounds like a plan.
Thanks. Could you just look into that camera and say goodbye to everybody?
Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Sid. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you soon. Take care. Okay, Sid, I'll talk to you soon, eh?
Great, bud. Thank you, huh?
Oh, you're welcome.